It's 3 a.m. The power goes out. You hear a rumble in the distance, followed by an unnerving silence. You check your phone, but it has no signal. This isn't a simple blackout. It's potentially something far more calculated. What if coordinated strikes targeted our critical infrastructure across multiple regions simultaneously? Not some far-off theoretical war, but a practical threat involving cartel-backed operatives with possible insider assistance, working together to systematically dismantle the systems we depend on. Within just 48 hours, the foundations of daily life could collapse. Power grids disabled, rail lines severed, fuel supply chains disrupted. State and federal agencies would scramble to respond, leading to roadblocks, surveillance drones, and hastily established checkpoints. In such a landscape, ordinary civilians risk becoming unwitting targets in a hostile, multi-faction environment where one wrong move, one misidentification at a checkpoint, one careless conversation with the wrong person could put you in serious danger. This isn't about fear-mongering. It's about preparing for realities that history has shown us time and again. Infrastructure collapse isn't theoretical, it's historical, and understanding how to navigate it could mean the difference between becoming a victim or remaining unnoticed and unharmed. Let's really dig into what this sabotage threat model actually looks like, because understanding the enemy's playbook is the first step in defending yourself. We're not talking about some grand military invasion here, but rather a surgical, asymmetric attack designed to sow chaos and disable our ability to respond effectively. Think about the tactics cartels already employ, then magnify them with a more sinister, strategic aim. Their proficiency in targeted destruction, where rail lines and major highways become impassable not by accident, but by expertly placed shaped charges designed to sever steel and concrete with precision, effectively halting all ground transportation in key corridors. Then consider the skies, where drone strikes aren't just for battlefields overseas anymore. A simple, commercially available drone, modified with explosive payloads, could be used to precisely target critical components of our power infrastructure, triggering cascading blackouts that plunge entire regions into darkness, creating a rolling wave of outages designed to disrupt communication and control. And it doesn't stop there, because on the more remote ranch roads and backcountry routes, improvised explosive devices, or IEDs, could suddenly appear, creating no-go zones, funneling traffic and isolating communities, designed to control movement and restrict access. Furthermore, these groups are incredibly adept at surveillance, meaning those drones buzzing above aren't just for carrying explosives. They're constantly streaming real-time footage of choke points and potential escape routes, feeding intelligence back to their operatives on the ground, making it incredibly difficult for anyone to move unnoticed. Look at documented cases from regions experiencing cartel influence. These groups have demonstrated their ability to immobilize entire areas through coordinated infrastructure attacks, targeting specific vulnerabilities that create maximum disruption with minimal resources. They're not just random acts, they're strategic operations designed to create specific outcomes: isolation, resource depletion, and ultimately, control. In a crisis where information is power, having your own early warning systems becomes absolutely critical, as you can't rely on traditional news channels or even official government pronouncements, because those systems might be compromised or simply overwhelmed. Instead, you need to become your own intelligence analyst by developing a baseline understanding of normal patterns in your area, the typical flow of traffic, standard helicopter flight paths, usual shipping schedules, so you can immediately recognize when something changes. Specific warning signs to look out for include halted freight traffic. If trains aren't moving, something's wrong. Widespread LTE outages are another huge red flag, as that's how many of us communicate. And if it goes down, it's a sign of a major disruption. And pay attention to fuel tanker rerouting, because if those critical supplies are being diverted or disappearing, it signals a breakdown in the supply chain. Beyond electronic indicators, train your senses to recognize acoustic anomalies, unusual explosion sounds, extended periods of silence in normally busy areas, or the distinctive sound signatures of military versus civilian aircraft. Learn to differentiate between the controlled detonations of construction work and the chaotic, unplanned sound patterns of actual sabotage. Set up simple tripwire alarms around your property using fishing line and aluminum cans. Primitive but effective perimeter alerts that function without power. Train yourself to spot surveillance patterns. The same vehicle passing multiple times, unfamiliar drones hovering nearby, or unusual photography of infrastructure in your area. Start mapping critical infrastructure around your home now. Know where transmission lines run, where water mains connect, and which routes would remain viable if main arteries were compromised. These concrete steps transform abstract concerns into actionable intelligence, giving you the critical edge when standard information channels fail. Now, let's talk about the art of being a gray man in a disrupted and militarized zone, because in this kind of scenario, being unnoticed is your superpower. And this isn't about being invisible in the supernatural sense. It's about blending in so seamlessly that you become utterly uninteresting to anyone looking for trouble, meaning it's about not drawing attention to yourself in a landscape where everyone is suspicious of everyone else. First, let's tackle visual camouflage, where your appearance should scream average local and nothing else, meaning you should wear weathered, worn clothing that looks like it's seen a bit of life, not fresh out of a store, and avoid anything that looks tactical, like camo patterns, military boots, or even overly sturdy outdoor gear as that stuff. Even if you just wear it for fashion, immediately flags you as someone who might be prepared, someone who might have supplies, or someone who might be a threat, and you want to look like you're just trying to get by. Nothing more, nothing less. The same goes for your vehicle. Make it appear uninteresting, meaning it should be grimy, perhaps a bit dusty, and definitely debranded. So take off any bumper stickers, any organizational logos, anything that identifies you or your affiliations, because you want your vehicle to look like a forgotten workhorse, something that no one would bother to stop or inspect because there's nothing of value or interest to be found, making a common, unremarkable vehicle your best friend in this environment. Master advanced situational dressing, having clothing appropriate for multiple environments that can be quickly adapted through layering or simple modifications. Learn to match your pace and posture to those around you. If locals move deliberately, adopt that same rhythm. If they tend to look down while walking, do the same. Develop the tactical skill of peripheral observation, gathering visual information without the obvious head movements that signal active surveillance. Practice what operatives call adaptive personas, having several believable cover stories ready that explain your presence in different areas, complete with just enough mundane details to satisfy casual questioning without inviting deeper scrutiny. If such a scenario unfolds, urban areas, especially those along major arteries, will quickly descend into chaos. Navigating these gridlocked cities and protecting your urban dwelling requires specific strategies. Let's talk about home hardening strategies first. Your primary goal isn't to turn your house into an impenetrable fortress, but to make it a less attractive target and more defensible should the worst happen. This includes discreetly reinforcing interior windows, which can be as simple as adding security film to prevent shattering or installing small, easily removable wood or metal barriers that can be slipped into place from the inside. You don't want to make it look like a war zone from the outside, but you do want to make it difficult for someone to just smash and grab. Even more advanced, if feasible, is installing hidden ballistic barriers behind drywall in key areas. These could be sheets of Kevlar or even multiple layers of plywood that are unseen until needed, providing a measure of protection against small arms fire. A surprisingly effective deterrent, especially for deterring opportunistic looters, can be strategic graffiti and symbols on the exterior. In chaotic times, certain symbols can signal that a place is already claimed or too much trouble, making it less appealing to those looking for an easy target. This is a psychological trick, but one that can buy you precious time and deter unwanted attention. Develop advanced entry and exit protocols for your dwelling. Never use the same route twice in succession. Vary your timing patterns, and always conduct a detailed observation period before approaching. Create what urban tacticians call fatal funnels awareness, identifying and avoiding areas where movement becomes predictable and controlled by the environment, making you vulnerable to ambush or observation. Master the urban triangle technique, mentally establishing 3 separate exit routes from any location you enter, with each route using different elevations, movement types, and environmental cover. Transform ordinary spaces into defensive positions through what security experts call environmental manipulation, subtly arranging furniture to create cover, identifying improvised barriers that can be rapidly deployed, and preparing everyday objects that can serve as distractions or obstacles if needed. Moving beyond the concrete jungles, if you find yourself in the vast open spaces of rural and wilderness regions, your movement tactics need to shift dramatically. The rules of urban invisibility don't apply here. Instead, you're looking at a different kind of camouflage, a deeper understanding of the land itself. Terrain utilization becomes your primary survival tool in these environments. You'll want to travel via arroyos and dry washes for concealment. These natural channels, carved by ancient floods, offer incredible concealment, deep enough to hide your entire body, allowing you to move through open country without being silhouetted against the horizon. They also offer protection from observation from a distance, making it incredibly difficult for ground patrols or even low-flying aircraft to spot you. Beyond the washes, use the natural vegetation as your cover by using mesquite and creosote cover to break outlines. These bushes, common in many arid and semi-arid regions, are not just obstacles, they are your allies. Dense enough to break up your outline, allowing you to move from cover to cover, creating a constantly shifting visual signature that's hard to track. You should always think about how your body casts a shadow, and how the vegetation can absorb or break up that shadow, making you essentially disappear into the landscape. Master the advanced technique of micro-terrain mapping, identifying small depressions, minor elevation changes, and natural features that don't appear on topographical maps, but provide critical concealment when moving across open ground. Learn what trackers call the pressure transfer principle. Understanding how your weight distribution changes the environment and how to minimize those changes by stepping on naturally hard surfaces, using roots or rocks as stepping points, and avoiding substrate that holds impressions. Implement specialized movement timing based on thermal conditions, traveling during thermal crossover periods at dawn and dusk when temperature differentials are minimal, making thermal detection significantly more difficult for surveillance technology. Develop proficiency in what wilderness experts call natural configuration retention, the ability to move through vegetation while maintaining its natural shape and position, leaving no obvious trail of bent stems, broken branches, or disturbed ground cover that would indicate human passage. In a crisis scenario, you'll inevitably encounter checkpoints, and knowing how to navigate them is a critical survival skill. These aren't just official roadblocks. They could be manned by various factions, each with their own agenda, and recognizing the difference could save your life. First, recognize the difference between guard, militia, and cartel stops. National Guard checkpoints will likely be more structured, with official uniforms, clearly marked vehicles, and established procedures. This means they might be more formal but also more predictable. Militia stops can be trickier, as they might appear official but lack the same level of discipline or clear identification. Look for variations in uniforms, weaponry, and how they interact with civilians. Cartel stops, on the other hand, will often be more aggressive, less organized, and focused on extortion, recruitment, or intelligence gathering. They might have civilian vehicles, disguised operatives, and an intimidating demeanor. Your ability to quickly assess who you're dealing with will dictate your response. Once you've made an assessment, know what to say and how to behave in each case. With official guard or state trooper checkpoints, be polite, cooperative, and provide minimal, truthful information. Don't volunteer anything beyond what's asked. Keep your hands visible, avoid sudden movements, and answer questions calmly. Master what security professionals call pre-approach reconnaissance, developing the habit of identifying checkpoint structures from maximum distance, noting the number of personnel, their equipment, vehicle types, and behavioral patterns before you're close enough to be engaged. Learn advanced vehicle preparation techniques like tactical obscuration, modifying your vehicle to appear less valuable or capable than it actually is through strategic dirt application, minor cosmetic damage, or visual elements that suggest mechanical problems. Develop proficiency in checkpoint assessment sequencing, the methodical process of evaluating multiple factors in a specific order, such as visible weapons, uniform consistency, communication equipment, and vehicle positioning, to rapidly determine the legitimacy and threat level of a checkpoint. Master the skill of conversational deflection, the ability to answer questions in ways that seem cooperative while providing minimal actual information. Use calculated confusion, deliberate vagueness, or strategic misdirection to protect sensitive details about your resources, destination, or capabilities. In a grid-down zone where power lines are cut and internet access is a distant memory, Maintaining power for essential devices and establishing reliable communications become a matter of survival. And this isn't about powering your entire home. It's about keeping vital low-power systems operational. Your primary workhorse will be solar panels, but these can also draw unwanted attention. So the trick is to deploy solar panels hidden beneath mesh to charge radios. This allows them to still gather sunlight effectively, while making them much less obvious to overhead surveillance or curious eyes. These panels can then be used to charge essential items like two-way radios, small medical devices, or headlamps. When it comes to communication, forget about cell phones. You'll need to rely on more robust and independent methods. This means you should use SSB receivers and printed frequency charts. Shortwave radio, specifically SSB, single sideband receivers, will be your lifeline, allowing for long-distance communication with minimal power. And more importantly, they are independent of any centralized infrastructure. You'll need to have printed frequency charts, not just stored on a device, but physical copies. These charts will list known emergency frequencies, amateur radio bands, and even predetermined channels for local group communications, ensuring you can always tune in, even if your digital devices fail. Master what communications specialists call propagation window identification, understanding how radio wave transmission changes throughout the day based on atmospheric conditions. This allows you to maximize transmission distance by broadcasting during optimal periods. Develop proficiency in passive signal harvesting, the technique of collecting information from existing transmissions without broadcasting yourself. Use directional antennas, signal amplifiers, and strategic positioning that maximizes reception while minimizing your electronic signature. Learn advanced power generation concealment through distributed microgeneration, using multiple small, easily hidden power sources rather than a single larger system. Each component should be camouflaged as ordinary objects or integrated into existing structures to avoid detection from ground observation or aerial surveillance. When the power grid collapses and supply chains grind to a halt, the most fundamental needs, water and food, become paramount, and you can't rely on official sources. Sustaining life during a fuel chain collapse requires becoming entirely self-sufficient, starting with water security, where you need to think creatively and robustly. This means you should set up downspout-fed buried barrels with great protection. This allows you to harvest rainwater directly from your roof, a consistent and often overlooked source. Burying the barrels not only helps keep the water cool and protected from evaporation, but also conceals your water source from opportunistic individuals. The great protection prevents debris and pests from entering the system, ensuring cleaner water for later purification. For actual purification, especially in a grid-down scenario where traditional filters might be scarce or break, mastering non-combustion sand charcoal filters for batch water purification is essential. This is a low-tech, highly effective method using readily available materials like sand, gravel, and activated charcoal, which you can make yourself. And while it's a slower process, it works, and it doesn't require electricity or specialized parts, ensuring you always have access to potable water. Develop what survival specialists call strategic consumption sequencing, the calculated use of resources in a specific order to maximize shelf life and minimize waste. Start with perishables and move to longer-term storage foods based on a predetermined schedule, rather than preference or convenience. Master the advanced technique of distributed micro-caching, storing critical supplies in multiple small, easily concealed locations rather than a single, large stockpile. This reduces vulnerability to theft and creates redundancy that ensures no single compromise eliminates all resources. Learn specialized food preservation methods like anaerobic fermentation, using naturally occurring bacteria to transform and preserve foods without refrigeration. This extends usable life while adding beneficial probiotics that support immune function during high-stress periods. In a scenario involving coordinated infrastructure sabotage, injuries are not just a possibility, they're a probability, and your medical preparedness needs to shift from everyday cuts and scrapes to a focus on severe trauma and environmental threats. You must equip for blast and puncture trauma gauze, decompression needles, Israeli bandages, which means having ample supplies of pressure dressings like Israeli bandages, designed for rapid application to severe bleeding, and decompression needles, while requiring training to use, are crucial for treating tension pneumothorax, a life-threatening complication of chest injuries that can occur from blasts or penetrating wounds. And of course, plenty of sterile gauze for packing wounds and controlling hemorrhage, as these aren't just first aid kit items, they are essential for saving a life in the immediate aftermath of an explosion or other violent incident. Beyond acute trauma, remember that remote or disrupted regions, especially those with harsh climates, present significant environmental challenges. So consider heat countermeasures, ORS, IV kits, freezer-based cooling packs, because heat stroke and dehydration can be just as deadly as a physical injury. And you should stock up on oral rehydration salts, ORS, which are far more effective than plain water for rehydrating someone in distress. Master what combat medics call tactical triage prioritization, the ability to rapidly assess multiple injuries in a high-stress environment and determine treatment sequence based on available resources, treatment time requirements, and survival probability. Develop proficiency in austere environment sterilization, creating medical-grade sterile conditions using minimal resources through improvised pressure cookers, solar UV sterilization, or chemical methods when conventional autoclaves aren't available. Learn specialized wound closure techniques beyond standard suturing, including improvised butterfly closures from common materials, tissue adhesives from natural compounds, and specialized pressure bandaging that promotes healing while minimizing infection risk in environments where antibiotics may be unavailable. In a world where everyone is on edge and looking for something, deception and tactical misdirection become invaluable tools to ensure your safety and the security of your resources, because it's about creating a narrative, a false trail, that leads unwanted attention away from you and your true intentions. One effective tactic is to use dummy cargo loads to mask real supplies. If you're moving valuable goods, perhaps food, water, or medical supplies, load your vehicle or even your backpack with less valuable, more obvious items on top, like old clothes, empty containers, or even just general junk, because this creates the impression that you're not carrying anything worth stealing, making you a less attractive target for looters or opportunistic groups, while the real, valuable supplies are then hidden discreetly beneath or within these dummy loads. Beyond physical misdirection, you can also employ sound traps to draw drones away from your location. And this can be as simple as setting sound traps with barking loops to draw drones away, where you set up a small speaker with a pre-recorded loop of barking dogs, human voices, or other common sounds that could indicate a presence. And you place this speaker some distance away from your actual position, perhaps in a different direction than your intended path. So when a drone or other surveillance asset picks up these sounds, it will naturally investigate, drawing its attention away from your actual location and giving you precious time to move or remain concealed. Master what intelligence operatives call pattern disruption, deliberately breaking your routines, travel routes, and activity cycles to prevent predictive analysis by hostile observers. Never visiting the same resource point at the same time or using the same approach twice in succession. Develop advanced proficiency in false indicator planting, strategically placing misleading evidence of movement, occupation, or resource gathering that suggests activity in areas you've actually abandoned or never used, creating resource-consuming diversions for potential threats. Learn specialized techniques for what tactical deception specialists call signature management, controlling the environmental signs of your presence by minimizing heat signatures through insulation, reducing light emissions through specialized shielding, and eliminating distinctive sounds through strategic timing and sound absorption methods. Before the storm hits, before any of these hypothetical scenarios become reality, there's a pre-event readiness checklist that can make all the difference in your ability to survive and remain invisible. And this isn't about collecting everything under the sun. It's about targeted, practical preparations that address the unique challenges of a crisis involving infrastructure disruption. First and foremost, print and annotate regional maps, because you should forget digital navigation. When the grid goes down, your phone is a brick, so physical maps, especially detailed topographical ones, become invaluable, and you should annotate them with potential alternate routes, known water sources, hidden trails, and even potential choke points or areas of concern. And these maps should be stored in multiple, easily accessible, and waterproof locations. Next, consider burying sealed caches in concealed, recoverable locations, as these aren't just for emergencies, they're your insurance policy. So think about crucial supplies like extra water filtration, basic medical kits, communication devices, or even some extra cash, small bills. And these caches should be buried in locations that are difficult to find, perhaps off-trail or disguised within natural features, but always recoverable by you. And you should practice with your family so everyone knows how to locate and access them if needed, because this decentralizes your supplies and gives you options if your primary residence becomes untenable. Master what preparedness specialists call capability layering, developing multiple solutions for each essential need: water, food, shelter, security, with varying levels of technological sophistication, ensuring that if high-tech solutions fail, mid-tech backups exist, and if those fail, primitive but effective methods remain viable. Develop proficiency and readiness without resources, the ability to create functional solutions using only what's available in your immediate environment, practicing improvisation skills that allow you to adapt ordinary objects into survival tools through modification, combination, or repurposing. Learn the advanced technique of progressive training integration, systematically building skills in a sequence that creates natural connections between capabilities, where each new skill complements and enhances previously mastered techniques, creating a comprehensive preparedness framework rather than isolated abilities. So as we bring this discussion to a close, let's circle back to the core message. In a world potentially facing asymmetric, cartel-led infrastructure attacks, your survival hinges on becoming invisible. It's not about fighting, it's about appearing utterly unimportant and uninvolved, blending into the chaos rather than standing out from it. This isn't a future possibility, it's a plausible flashpoint that demands our attention and preparation now, while our systems still function, while we still have the luxury of time to plan and prepare. Remember the key strategies we've discussed? Blend in visually and behaviorally, making yourself an uninteresting target, move smart, utilizing terrain, avoiding detection from above, and navigating gridlocked areas with quiet ingenuity, and prep quietly, building your resilience and resources without drawing unwanted attention to your efforts. Start by implementing a progressive training regimen. Begin with basic skills like fire starting without matches, water purification using improvised filters, and navigation without electronics. Then advance to more complex abilities like counter-surveillance movement, gray man appearance modifications, and tactical communication methods. Create what specialists call an everyday carry rotation, cycling different tools and resources through your daily carry items to maintain familiarity with a wide range of equipment while never appearing overly prepared to casual observation. Develop a personal protocol for what military planners call immediacy response, the specific actions you'll take in the first 20 minutes, first hour, and first day of a significant disruption, practiced until they become automatic rather than requiring conscious decision-making under stress. The time for action is now. Don't wait until the power goes out, the rails buckle, or the fuel runs dry. Start printing those maps, stocking those hidden caches, and learning those essential skills today. Because when the chaos erupts, when the dust settles, the invisible are the ones who survive, the ones who adapt, and the ones who emerge from the shadows to rebuild. If this video has opened your eyes or given you something to think about, please give it a big thumbs up. It really helps the channel grow and reach more people who need this information. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our future content on preparedness and survival. Stay safe, stay smart, and most importantly, stay invisible.